Imagine you're driving home from a tense family holiday. You know, where someone made a joke and it fell in a really bad place. Another person shut down and everything just went quiet, too quiet. The room filled with tension and frustration. It didn't feel right for anyone. On the way home, you're replaying this conversation over and over and over again. And you're asking yourself, what's really going on? Why did things feel so off? Why does this keep happening? And what am I supposed to do? This is a rethink moment. It's not just about what was said. It's what went unmet. The missed needs for being understood, being respected, feeling connected. That's what we're looking for. And when we slow down and we begin thinking relationally, that's when we begin looking at what's underneath that. That's where relationship intelligence begins. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Rethink podcast. I'm Dr. David Zierk. This is where we step back, pause, reflect, and explore smarter and more connected ways to be smarter together. This episode is the one I've been waiting for. This is where I introduce the concept of relationship intelligence, or R.I.Q for short. It's a concept that I constructed over 20 years ago. It's a life skill that helps people turn conflict into connection, to understand what are the deeper lessons that's inside conflict, and to better understand how relationships work and understand when they stop working, what to do next. We'll look at why most of us during conflict rely on what I call our outdated relational instincts. Kind of the lessons that we overlearned and we go back to automatically. Relationship intelligence is a perspective, it's an insight, but it's also a tool set. This tool set allows you to respond with empathy, with insight, perspective, and do so with what I call comfortable confidence. Not a bad ambition, right? Before I begin breaking down a little bit more and help you understand what relationship intelligence is all about, let's just take a moment and talk about those two words, relationship and then intelligence, and why I put them together. Relationships basically are the connections that you've made across time and experience, and they settle in your memory banks. You have a relationship with a person, good or bad, effective or ineffective. That's a relationship. And then there's the word intelligence. I really enjoy this word. As a psychologist, I look at the word intelligence as a person's native capacity. And when you begin practicing this native capacity, it allows you to move towards and realize your full potential. And when you move in the direction of that potential, then you experience this really deeply felt sense of fulfillment. So intelligence, we have formal intelligence and we have like informal intelligences. Let me share with you what I mean. And informal intelligence would be like math. There's people that you probably know who are deeply analytical, who really can understand complex abstract problems and deal with them as easy as 1 + 1 = 2. Then there's other people, instead of having mathematical intelligence, they have musical intelligence, creative intelligence. They love to improvise, they love to perform, and they do so based on their passion. Mathematical intelligence, musical intelligence, and let's throw in language. Language is another intelligence, the ability to speak multiple languages, be able to effectively communicate with people across the globe. But also I'm looking at language intelligence as the ability to effectively articulate what you're thinking and do so in such a way that it's received by others in a really deeply understood way. That's powerful. So this idea of intelligences is really important. Formal and informal intelligence. And the formal intelligence, the informal intelligence I'm thinking about have to do with like social intelligence. That's the ability to Step into a room and read it. To understand what's going on, what's positive, what's a little bit frictional, and to move in the direction that you choose. You can read the room. Emotional intelligence, instead of reading the room, you read what's going on inside of you. You understand the colorfulness of your emotions. And you're able to at least have a best guess at what's going on inside of other people. You have emotional intelligence, a very popular form of intelligence. So we have formal and we have informal intelligences. We put them together, and those are the gifts that we have. Some, obviously, for some people, they're stronger in some areas than in others. But you have to understand what your intelligence is. Now, let's take one step back from that, and let's begin looking at something that's really happened very quickly in our culture. And it's the introduction of artificial intelligence. This incredible, massive algorithmic ability to throw information into a machine and have it output incredible answers to complex problems in a unique way. I hope we continue to use it in a way that's morally justified and helpful. But when I start thinking about artificial intelligence, and one of my concerns about that is I reflect on what Alvin Toffler said. Alvin Toffler is a late author and speaker. His popular novels were like Megatrends and Future Shock. So he's a futurist. He's the kind of person who looks at trends, puts them together, and is really effective at connecting the dots and kind of predicting with a great deal of accuracy of what tomorrow looks like. Alvin Toffler said something long time ago that I've never forgotten, and that's for technology to work, to be effective, to fall into humanity in a very, very helpful way. It needs to have a complementary source of touch, technology and touch. And they have to complement one another, he says. Otherwise, technology can become very destructive. So when I think of artificial intelligence on the spectrum as a really robust form of potentially helpful information, technologically driven, I ask myself, what's the complementary touch? And that's relationship intelligence. Relationship intelligence is the ability to get your needs met at the same time as attending to the needs of other people, and doing so by understanding and interpreting the deeper lessons that conflict is trying to teach us. So let's go through that once again. Relationship intelligence is all about getting your needs met while you attend to the needs of other people, especially under times of conflict. But what is it that we need? So when I was developing this concept of relationship intelligence, I began to realize that not many of us handle conflict very effectively. And one of the primary axioms I developed was the understanding that underneath every conflict is an unmet need. That's something that you've heard in previous podcasts, and you're going to hear in countless future podcasts. Underneath every conflict is an unmet need. But what is it that we need, want, desire, and deserve more than anything else that we can't give ourselves? And when we receive it from other people, we feel complete. We feel validated. We feel alive. We feel balanced. We feel good. What are those things that we need that we can't give ourselves? I believe there's 5 primary needs. I'm just going to go through them very quickly right now. There'll be a handout on my website for this under attachment needs. But we're going to have a separate podcast altogether to really get into the weeds of what these 5 primary needs are all about. What is it that we need, want, desire, and deserve more than anything else that we can't give ourselves, but when we receive it, life is good? There's 5 needs. The first one is attention. The need for attention is what I call like a moth to a flame. We all enjoy the heat that comes from the spotlight of attention. So we're seeking attention. We're seeking affection, what I call the glue of human connection. Affection, whether it's a pat on the back, a nicely spoken phrase, or maybe a deep embrace, but that affection is the glue of human connection. So we have attention and affection. The third need is acknowledgement. I call it the high five of the soul. Being acknowledged. Being acknowledged for what you do, being acknowledged for who you are, it makes everything more real. You see what people can give you that you can't give yourself? So we have attention and affection and acknowledgement. Let's move to the next one. It's approval. Being approved of. What I call the intrinsic piece of the psychic puzzle. Being approved. Receiving approval from other people. Just understand the quality of that experience when someone or some people approve of what it is that you do or who you are and how you do it. And the fifth and final need that we can't give ourselves is applause. What I call this kind of the crescendo of life. When you perform and people put their hands together, whether it's a standing ovation or a rhythmic clapping, you feel it. You feel connected to other people as a result of what you did and how you did it. Now, what's fascinating about these 5 needs? Those are the 5 things that we need that we can't give ourselves, that we're dependent upon other people to give us. That's really it. I mean, perhaps it's a little bit more complicated than that, and we'll talk about it in future podcasts, but those are the 5 things. Those are the 5 what I call attachment needs. Because when we receive those needs, and those needs get satisfied in real time when we really need it, we get balance, we feel grounded. We return to our secure base internally, and we give ourselves permission to be ourselves. That's a great feeling. Let's talk for just a quick moment about what happens when those needs don't get met. I believe that life is really good at letting us down, bringing us down, and pulling us down. It's almost like it happened anywhere. You go to the grocery store, you could be on the road, you could be at work, you could be talking to family around a table, and someone tells a joke, it doesn't land well. And everything shifts, everything changes. So the opposite of attention is being ignored. That changes things. When you get attention, you feel connected. When you feel ignored, there's a disconnection. The opposite of affection is being hurt. Being injured, it's being devalued. Again, when we receive affection, we feel connected to others. When someone hurts us, there's a disconnect. Moving to acknowledgement, the opposite of that is being dismissed. Just being dismissed. You can go now. The opposite of approval is rejection. It's being excluded. It's people saying they no longer want your company. You're rejected. And the last one, approval, what's really interesting about that is the opposite of approval is not being jeered, it's not being hissed or booed. It's being treated with indifference. It's being given the message that you don't matter. You're treated with indifference. Again, we're going to break that down much more in another podcast. It's a fun one. But always understand that relationship intelligence is about getting your needs met when you attend to the needs of other people, and doing so by interpreting and understanding the deeper insights that are associated with conflict. Underneath every conflict is an unmet need. Now we can turn to relationship intelligence itself. I came up with this concept. It's big. It's a meta construct. It really, I do believe, is a definitively needed for nearly every person I've ever met. Certainly every person who ever walked through my clinic with a problem. They have conflict. Either it's conflict internally or conflict interpersonally, but they don't know how to navigate it. So I came up with relationship intelligence. And then turning conflict into connection. It sounds really great. How can you teach it? So I had to fractionate it. I had to operationalize it. I had to ask myself, how do I take relationship intelligence that's native and organic in some people, and they do it without effort? And they can very effectively turn conflict into connection. And they can do so in a very comfortably confident manner. How do I transfer that magic to other individuals who, perhaps because of their upbringing or because of their unfortunate relationship history, didn't learn the same lessons? so they're disadvantaged. So what I did is I began to identify relationship intelligence as a mindset that's built on 4 essential principles. Here. And they're very much in this order, but you can also look at them as they're in this kind of general order. But I really do believe the order matters in order to really enhance a relationship intelligence and to become more effective at turning conflict into connection. The first principle is mutuality. It's the ability to act thoughtfully in ways that benefit everyone. I mean, that's what mutuality means, to be mutually respectful. Respecting yourself and the other person at the same time. And a really nice way to put this into action is to think we and not just me. It's to seek benefits for all parties. And you can imagine, what rethinking is all about is thinking with connection in mind. So mutuality is the active ingredient in rethinking. We'll learn in another podcast that the mind is very self-protective, self-oriented, and that's what it does by reflex. That's what I call that outdated relational instinct. During conflict, people go to self, become defensive, protect themselves. And oftentimes by doing so, things don't get better. They might not always get worse, but they don't get better. We don't prosper or benefit from that conflict. And that's a really important insight because I really do believe that we really get to know each other extremely well only through conflict. If you have a relationship with a person and it's conflict-free, and it has been from the very start, I question to what extent you really know that person. For instance, if it's a sibling, I'm sure you've had some sibling rivalry, some fights here and there. And as you navigate that conflict, you get to know each other better. You get to understand that other person. And you pass the test of the other person thinks, you get me. I matter and you get me. That's the power of mutuality. So we think more in we, not just in me. That's principle number 1. The second principle that really puts into action relationship intelligence is relatability. Now, this is an incredible concept. It's really hard to define and it's really hard to execute if you're not so inclined, but you can practice it. To be relatable it's like, I think of it as to be understood and to be understood while feeling connected to other people. To understand what's going on around you and inside of you, and to be understood by other people. Now, other people receive what you're doing, what you're saying, in a much more non-defensive way when you're relatable. When you see others clearly and you let them see you. So there's transparency, and clearly in relatability is vulnerability. Now, I'm certainly not saying green light everything and be vulnerable all the time, but I am saying is pick the time to be vulnerable because it will improve your relatability. When you're reasonably vulnerable to another person and they reciprocate with a degree of vulnerability about them to you, they share it, your connection with that person is strengthened. Because 1, you're keeping mutuality in mind, reciprocity, and you're also being relatable. You're understanding and you're being understood while being connected to another person. The third principle, beyond being mutuality and relatability, is adaptability. Good word. Flexibility, if you will, but I like adaptability because knowing what to do when you don't know what to do, it's having options. I like to call it flexing with insight. To navigate your surroundings by being smart and savvy. I think we need to be smart at times when we deal with what I call solvable problems. Hey, where do you want to go out for dinner? Maybe you take turns and you just approach it smart. You don't make a big deal out of anything, and that's smart. But most problems inside of relationships, most conflict in relationship is unsolvable. They repeat themselves. We'll talk again why it's unsolvable at another podcast. But right now, just trust me, most problems in relationships are unsolvable. Therefore, instead of resolving them, we have to learn to navigate them. And we learn to navigate them, keeping mutuality in mind, being more relatable and adaptable, flexing with insight. Now, what I mean by that is changing your lens, not just your stance. By changing your lens, you're changing your perspective. You're saying, how else can I see this? What am I missing? That's changing your lens. And I certainly want you to hold on to your stance, your beliefs, your preferences, your priorities, what's important to you. That stance is really important. But if you only stay steadfast on that stance, your lens is going to be very myopic. You're going to only see your surroundings one way. You're probably going to be experienced by others as being rigid. So changing your lens while you're maintaining your stance, that's adaptability. And then the last principle is accountability. Accountability is being held to specific standards compassionately and playfully. Compassion makes sense. That's doing so with beneficence, kindness, compassion, generosity. Being held to specific standards in a very beneficent way, let's say it's called kindness or compassion, that more or less speaks for itself. But the playfulness, you might not have been expecting that. I like the mindset of playfulness. Doesn't mean to be humorous. It means to be lighthearted. It means not taking everything so seriously. Receiving it, but not gripping it. Take responsibility without self-blame. Lead with integrity and compassion. That's accountability. I do believe accountability, to go back to the first one, has mutuality built right into it. If you're going to hold other people to a high standard, hold yourself to a similar standard as well. So we've walked through these 4 principles that really make relationship intelligence dynamic and teachable. I like to think of relationship intelligence as the third leg of a stool, alongside rationality and emotionality. Rationality is, like we talked about before, being smart, being analytical, making good decisions, problem solving, planning and organizing. Great skills to have. Looking at things through a rational lens, coming up with ideas that are rationally based. That makes sense. But we also need emotionality, because emotions teach us what's important. But if we are rational and or emotional, that's not a very effective way to handle conflict. And I do believe there's a third leg, and that third leg is relationship intelligence. It's being relational. It's thinking with connection in mind. And what's interesting is when you begin practicing relationship intelligence and you begin strengthening your capacity to be mutual and relatable and adaptable and accountable, you shift from being defensive to having really interesting dialogue. That shift also involves going from either misunderstanding another individual or being misunderstood yourself and creating a sense of shared meaning. So let's take this concept of relationship intelligence that we've kind of fractionated a little bit, kind of made it actionable, if you will. And let's use a workplace example. Picture a leader who's frustrated with their team because they're not meeting expectations, they're missing deadlines, things aren't going well. And their boss is coming down heavy on them. So what's their outdated relational instinct? Do they lay down the law? Do they raise the volume? Do they increase control? Okay, good luck with that. Doesn't sound very relational to me. Sounds rational, maybe even emotional. But a relationally intelligent leader steps back, pauses, reflects, and asks, is something not being said? Is there a voice in this room that's not being heard? What's the unmet need here? Am I communicating in a way that people feel safe enough to perform? Interesting idea, isn't it? Being a boss, a leader, and asking yourself, am I communicating and interacting with other people so that they can feel safe enough to perform? When people don't feel safe, they oftentimes go to compliance. Of course, you can go to rebellion, but oftentimes in work situation, you see more compliance. So instead of managing performance through pressure, you manage connection through curiosity, through intentionality, through flexibility. The result is not just compliance, but commitment. So here's my call to action for you this week. I want you to choose one relationship, whether it's at home or at work, and look at the last moment of tension. Now ask yourself, what was the real need that went unmet? Did that other person or yourself need attention, affection, acknowledgement, approval, or applause? What principle? Mutuality, relatability, adaptability, accountability. Which principle was missing or insufficiently attended to? And how might you show up differently next time? I want you to write it down. I want you to say it out loud, and I want you to practice it. Because relationship intelligence isn't something you just have, it's something that you build. And by building relationship intelligence, that's how you learn to be really effective to turn conflict into connection. You find your style, your conflict style. So I want to thank you for listening to the Rethink podcast. Relationship intelligence might sound like a theory, but it's a practice and one that you can start today. The more you think with connection in mind, the more you'll discover that you don't have to be perfect to be powerful, but you do have to be present. I really enjoy that phrase. You don't have to be perfect to be powerful, but you do have to be present. So follow us on Apple, Spotify, or go to davidzierk.com for more resources and tools that help you rethink your leadership one conversation at a time. Till next time, keep thinking with connection in mind, because that's how we grow stronger together.